This is Dan Turchin from AI and the Future of Work. Welcome to this special highlight episode featuring 4 extraordinary unicorn founders redefining industries with artificial intelligence. As you can probably tell, we're using my AI voice clone for this compilation. The real me reviewed and approved the content. The human me will, of course, continue to publish the weekly episodes. You're about to hear insights from 4 amazing past guests: Wade Foster from Zapier, Jonathan Siddharth from Turing, May Habib from Writer, and Arvind Jain from Glean. Each of them shares a unique perspective on how AI is not just transforming markets, it's reshaping how leaders build companies that scale. Let's start with Wade Foster, co-founder and CEO of Zapier. Zapier now powers automations for over 3.4 million businesses, but the journey started with forum posts and friendly emails. Listen as Wade shares the early scrappy tactics they used to reach product market fit, one Skype call at a time.
Part of how we recognize the idea might be worth pursuing is you'd go to the community forums, the customer forums of these products, of, a Zendesk, a Salesforce, a MailChimp, whatever. And you would see in the forums all these requests. Hey, when will you integrate with XYZ? And we started to go like, well, that's demand right there. Like, people want this thing. The question is the solution a good one? And so from that point, it was, okay, can we make this thing that actually does do the integration work? And so once we had, a version of it working, I would start to go into those forums and ping people directly, message them directly, maybe track down an email address directly and just send them like a friendly email. I'm not trying to be overly salesy or anything, but just say, hey, I noticed you were looking for XYZ. Did you find a solution for it that you liked? If not, I've got a project that I'm working on that might be able to solve this. And I was curious if you might want to take a look and see if it fits the bill. And, people would reply back saying, I've solved it, or no, I haven't. Do you connect this XYZ? And, I remember the first person I that replied back, they're like, this would be great. And so I shot them a link to get going. And, we're a fan of self-serve. We wanted to create this easy to use thing. And so we shot him the link, half thinking like, oh, he'll just be off to the races from there. And he emails me back and he goes, wait, I'm having a little trouble. You think you could jump on Skype? It was Skype at the time and help me out. And so we get on Skype and, watch him try and set up this app. And the product is not very good at this point in time. Like, it's not a beta. It's not even alpha. It's like a pre-alpha. I don't know why I thought he would be able to set it up. Nothing to do with his capabilities and everything to do with the state of the product. And, we're just going through and I'm smiling, helping him. But in the back of my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is so bad. This is so bad. This is so bad. But we get to the end. And at the end, we want to test this app. I say, he's got a form on one side and an email marketing tool on the other. And so when he completes, we're going to send it over the email marketing tool. So we go fill out his form, click submit, and we say, let's go to the email marketing tool. Let's check. Did the email come through? Pull it up. It comes up. It's there. He goes, Wade, this is so cool. This is going to change how I do business. And in the back of my head, I was like, holy cow. He just went through this incredibly bad setup process. He needed help every step of the way. And his reaction is not one of frustration. It's one of excitement. And so that's where I was like, okay, we're on the right problem. This is going to work if we can just make the software good enough. And so then the iteration problem to get to that product market fit was then just rinse, wash, and repeating. So I had a bunch of notes where I was like, okay, Brian, Mike, here are all the areas that are not good enough in the product. Like, we have to make this easier to use in some way. And so we'd try and fix some of those things. And then the next person, we get on Skype and we do it all over again. And we'd say like, okay, this, and this was the problem this time, and just keep going. And, you repeat that long enough and, some of those problems start to fade and more customers start to get further through the setup process without asking questions. And eventually you have a call where they just do it and you're just sitting back and watching and you go, you know what? I think this might work. I think we're ready to launch this thing. And so that was kind of the process we used to get to product market fit.
Every entrepreneur listening right now is giving you a virtual high five, because oh my gosh. I mean, that's such a good way to encapsulate, the entrepreneurial journey.
Journey. Yeah.
That moment where you feel like you created something that delighted at least one user. Now, I got to get you off the hot seat, but not before you answer one last very important question for me. So think back to that kid from Mizzou who's playing sax in a jazz band, and now think about where you've become. The CEO of an 800 plus person company, delighting millions of users every day. What are some of the points in that journey where you look back on and you're like, man, I didn't know I could do that, and I just did it. And I imagine there have been a bunch of those, but just like talk us through, how, you reflect on some of the milestones.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting transition. Starting a company was never something I thought growing up. Like that seems like something other people do, smarter people do, like innovative people do. That's not me. Then you do that and you're like, okay, maybe I can do that. Building software, it's like, I don't know how to do that. That's not me. And then you learn a few things and you're like, oh, I can do that. Getting someone to pay you a dollar on the internet, like that's I don't know, other people know how to do. Can I do that? And then you do it and you make a buck there. Hiring your first person, getting accepted into something like YC, Y Combinator, making your first $1 million, like stuff like that are all steps along the way that, as a kid from Mizzou, it just not something I was like, oh, I can do that. That's going to be part of my path. And then along the way, you start to tackle enough of these things that, look, the imposter syndrome never goes away. You never wake up in the morning thinking like, I've got this. I 100% have that nailed. If someone does feel that way, I'd love to know what your trick is, because it's not me. But what does happen is you just get more confident in your problem solving abilities, because you've seen enough of these things that you're like, well, I didn't know how to do those things either, and I figured it out. So, well, let's go. Here's the next one. Let's go see if we can figure this one out. And it just becomes, I don't know. It's like, it's like playing Mario or Zelda growing up, where it was like the next level gets a little harder. And you're like, what puzzle do I have next? I may not be able to beat this, but like, if I keep trying, like maybe I'll figure it out. And so that to me has kind of been the approach to the journey, I guess.
What started with cold emails and duct tape prototypes turned into a tool that powers modern businesses. But fast growth doesn't happen by accident. It takes speed, and lots of it. That's exactly what worked for our next guest. Jonathan Siddharth is the CEO of Turing, a $2.2 billion platform that matches engineers with companies like Disney and OpenAI. He shares what it means to lead with what he calls a maniacal sense of urgency, and why founder CEOs must master the trifecta of technology, business, and people.
I'll talk about the skills that are hardest to cultivate, and I'll also talk about the skills that are relatively easy to cultivate but don't seem obvious to cultivate, so people may not know to cultivate them. I think the hardest thing to cultivate is being able to push the company with an uncomfortable sense of urgency. Like I call it a maniacal sense of urgency. Like I want Turing to operate with a maniacal sense of urgency, which means we don't plan in quarters and months. We want things in days and weeks. Pushing that sense of urgency where people will complain and certain folks will complain. You'll hear the inevitable sort of backlash at times that, oh, are we moving too fast? Like maybe we should think things through. But I think speed wins in startups and companies. Speed wins. If you look at kind of how Elon operates, Tesla, SpaceX, etc., it's an uncomfortable sense of urgency, a maniacal sense of urgency, crazy deadlines. I think that's like a hard skill to cultivate, because it means making yourself uncomfortable, making your teams uncomfortable, making your organization, putting it in a little bit of a state of edge, right? And there's a little more stress in the system. And you kind of have to have a pretty high pain threshold in some ways to be able to do that, both to yourself and you are the organization in some ways, like your psyche is that. I think that's a hard skill to cultivate, to really push for urgency every minute, every meeting, every day, where when somebody is saying this will take 3 weeks, asking them, what can we do today to take a step forward in that? What can we do right now, right? Like to take a step forward? And usually there are things you can do right now. And so that So the first thing that's important but difficult to cultivate is a maniacal sense of urgency, both for yourself and the organization. That's number one. The second thing that I think a lot of founders, CEOs probably find hard is, because it's a very unnatural thing, it's that you should be very comfortable not being liked potentially with certain decisions, right? Your decisions should be based on what's best for the customer. What's best for the customer is what's best for the business. And I think just operating with that, with a mindset of keeping the customer first. And oftentimes, like in business, there will always be easier decisions, path of low resistance decisions. It's not comfortable to have a vigorous debate with someone about a product direction or like a strategy direction. It's easier to just nod your head and go along if it's okay. So I want to create a culture at Turing where people feel okay debating, disagreeing, and generally it's okay to not be liked. It's more important to be respected and making sure you're making the right decisions. I think that's not an obvious thing. I think humans probably have a desire just to be liked and to get along. And I think, but as a leader, you kind of have to know when to push. That's the second thing that's kind of difficult. If I think about what's the third that's difficult to cultivate, it's not difficult, but I think like for most CEOs, I think you kind of need to, I always think of this trifecta of technology, business, and people. You kind of have to be good at all three, particularly if you're the CEO, technology, business, and people. You have to know the technology well enough to be able to solve the problem better for your customers than anybody else. You have to be good at business to make sure that you can build a valuable company that's valued highly by investors and others. And you have to be good at people, like relationships, sales, recruiting, things like that. So technology, business, people, you kind of need that trifecta. And if you're not good at any one, like you have to, I think it's tough. I think you kind of have those. That's the piece. I'll say one easy thing, Dan, which is important that every CEO, I think exec should do, is do a time audit and a calendar audit. So what I do every week is I make a list of things that I want to get done next week. And they're organized in 3 to 4 buckets in terms of the main areas of importance for the company. And I literally make a list of things of what do I want to get done next week. And then I make sure that my calendar matches up with those priorities. So I don't follow my calendar follows my priorities. And then at the end of the week, I get to strike off and I get a nice endorphin rush. Oh, I worked on these and I got this done. So my tagline, again, it's a little bit inspired by my tagline for both of those is, what did I get done last week and what am I going to get done next week? And I have that same format that I share with my exec team as well. My exec team fills out, what did I get done last week? What will I get done next week? And that makes sure that you're kind of working on whatever creates the most business value for the company at all times and you're not being reactive.
For Jonathan, growth means discomfort, pushing fast, debating options, and staying laser focused on impact. But sometimes building a unicorn isn't about pace, it's about perseverance. Just ask our next guest. May Habib is the co-founder and CEO of Writer, an enterprise generative AI company used by brands like Spotify and Uber. In this clip, she shares the emotional moment when she nearly gave up, what brought her back, and why she's now addicted to the hard.
I want to know, as one entrepreneur to another, what is your entrepreneurial journey at Writer or even prior to Writer taught you about yourself?
I think a couple of things, Dan. I've been doing this for a long time, and now, yes, we get great press, etc. But we were in obscurity for a long time, and we executed a tough pivot, and it was tough because folks didn't understand transformers and what the opportunity would be, and it felt like we were giving up on something that was making money and had customers and wait, what? And there were so many reasons why that should have failed, and it didn't, thank God. And the Cordoba journey wasn't an easy one either. We started in Dubai, we moved to San Francisco. There were so many visa issues, and there was only one time, literally only one time, that I was about to give up. I was actually sitting in this exact phone booth, and it was around the time of the pivot. And, we had a seed term sheet for Writer and starting the new thing. And it just felt like it was just one obstacle too many. Like this could not be, the universe's plan for me. Just too fucking hard. And I phoned a friend. And yeah, I've obviously talked to a lot of friends about the entrepreneurial journey that whole time, but it was a almost like a pre-grieving call. Like, I want you to know I've given up here. I'm like getting emotional thinking about it now. And her name is Sarah, my best friend. And obviously I didn't give up, but I came really, really damn close. And I think, the two things I've learned about myself is, one, I actually enjoy the struggle. Like I actually find joy in the building, in the milestones, in the celebrating the wins when they come, and doing hard shit with smart, good people. I actually love that. And I think it was just the strength of the team that had me not give up. There was just absolutely no way I could say no to working with these incredible people, the early Writer team. And so I think the loving the hard I've learned about myself, and the maybe being addicted to the hard also. I don't know. I've just worked every waking minute Monday to Friday since I was 8, and I have like no other default state.
Such a nice way to say it, being addicted to the hard. I think there are those days when you feel like you're 2 inches tall, and you get so many doors slammed in your face, and then at some point you look back and you realize it's a rite of passage. You have to appreciate what it feels like to really be at the end of your rope and have that call with your friend and feel like you're just there, just on the cusp of giving up, and then all of a sudden something amazing happens. You light a spark for a customer, you create some value, or a team member appreciates the opportunity you gave them, and all of a sudden you realize that there's just an infinite capacity that you have to be resilient and continue to persevere and be addicted to the hard. So I love the way you described that, and I think when history is written, we'll all be glad that you persevered through the tough times, and that Writer ultimately will be wildly successful.
May reminds us that sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come just after the breaking point. Next, we hear from a founder who's built not $1 but $2 billion companies with the same simple philosophy: hire great people and get out of their way. Arvind Jain is the co-founder and CEO of Glean, the $7.2 billion enterprise AI search platform backed by Sequoia and Lightspeed. He reflects on lessons from Google and Rubrik, and how a laser focus on building great products continues to be his compass.
Like, I think in terms of future of work, I feel like the other big challenge, that workers especially knowledge workers face is you also know what are you missing? What are the things that need your attention? What should I do? What should I work on today? So when I start my work day, there are a few tasks on my mind, but then there are a lot of other things that probably also need my attention, my help. And I think that's it. That's the space where I think there's, we need to see a lot of innovation, where think of it as like a personal assistant. There is every person actually gets an assistant, which is constantly guiding them in terms of hey, these are the new things then that you should be sort of, that you should be reading up about. These are the things that need your attention today. So, something that sort of helps you plan your day, plan your work. We feel like, that is going to be one big, area where there's going to be a lot of innovation happening in the next few years.
Arvind, hard to believe, but we're almost out of time. But you got to answer one last question for me. So you've had an amazing journey as an entrepreneur, plus your experience at Akamai on through Google, etc. What have you learned from some of those amazing companies that you've been at, having founded Rubrik, now at Glean. What are some of the lessons that have helped you build Glean?
There's so many, and I'm actually, feel fortunate that I was able to, be part of companies, that succeeded, in a big way and, made a big difference to the world. Some of the key learnings, like one of the big ones, is, I felt like, I learned a lot at Google, and I learned the importance of that, focus on, building great products. Like, oftentimes, when you, as an entrepreneur, like, you have to solve so many different problems. It's not about, just building a product. You have to sort of think about business strategy, like how you're going to sell the product. There is numerous challenges. But like the thing that I've actually come to realize, ultimately is that I think, you should just primarily focus on one thing. Like, you're solving a problem, just build a great product and everything else is going to follow from it. And so that was one big lesson, like, so we use that approach, in any sort of initiative, that we undertake now, like focus first on, building a great product and everything else follows from it. So that was my number one lesson. Number two lesson, from, we, again, from Google was, in Google, engineers, rule the company. And, the model was that, you hire, the best people and then give them full freedom, save them from bureaucracy and let them innovate, build great products. And that was I felt that very empowering for me because I was an engineer and suddenly I found myself in this place where I had full freedom to do what I wanted to do. And it created that culture where the company was able to innovate and build such great products, and so we've tried to follow that in our startups, again the same way, focus on finding people who are passionate about solving the problems you want to solve, and then let them have full freedom, right, and innovate. So those are two key lessons that I found very helpful as we sort of as I embarked on my own entrepreneurial journey.
What has the journey taught you about yourself?
Well, I mean, the one big thing is that as you sort of go through the journey and you start to realize how little you know, and the secret to make magic happen is to find all the people who are better than you, bring them together, and that's sort of what I feel my job is now, is understanding my limitations and working on building great teams that build great products and great companies.
From empowering engineers to simplifying knowledge work, Arvind shows how vision and execution come together to build enduring companies. Disrupting large markets with AI isn't just about vision, it's about execution. From building world-class teams to embracing urgency and resilience, these unicorn CEOs show what it takes to lead in the AI era. If any of these clips inspired you, go back and listen to the full episodes. You'll find all the links in today's show notes. And if you know someone building something ambitious with AI, share this episode with them. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of AI and the Future of Work. Until next time, stay bold and stay curious.